Hello, how are you guys doing today? Oh, wait, guys, no. Hello, wonderful ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Economics channel. So, our topic for today is theory of cost. The thing is, I've done this video before, but it's old, and I just want it to be new and kind of nice. And there are one or two things that I would also like to add in this particular video, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to summarize everything I want to say without taking your time. Okay, so theory of cost. So in this particular case, we are looking at cost in terms of production. Okay, so the cost of something is the amount spent in order to get that thing. Okay, so that's just it. The cost of something is the amount spent in order to get that thing. So I have a marker here with me. How much did I get it? I think it was 150 naira. Okay, so that's the cost, right? So I have a piece of paper with me. I bought it in bulk, kind of. So the amount I spent on the purchase is the cost of the bunch of papers that I bought at that particular period of time. So now we have types of cost in production. We have fixed costs. So fixed cost is a cost that does not change with the level of output. It doesn't matter what your output level is, it doesn't change. All right, an example is the phone I am using to record this particular video. All right, so let's assume that the cost of the phone was 100,000 naira. I'm not saying that's the cost, so I'm saying let us assume. All right, so thank you. All right, so the cost is the assumed cost or the cost is 100,000 naira. So now it doesn't matter if I record a class, right? The cost is still 100,000 naira. If I use this phone to record, let me say 5 videos, the cost is still 100,000 naira. So it doesn't change. And if I have not, if I intended to use the phone to record classes and I've not recorded the classes, all right. So the cost is still 100,000. So it doesn't change with the level of output. All right. So that's just how fixed cost is. Now I have a graph here. So the cost of the phone is 100,000 naira. So that is where the fixed cost is starting from. It's not starting from zero, and it does not change with the level of output. So output is Q. So whether I choose to produce, let's say, 5 videos with it, whether I choose to produce, let's say, 20 videos with it, whether I choose to produce 30 videos with it, the amount I bought the phone is the same. All right, it's not increasing as I'm, you know, increasing my production of videos, and it's not reducing. Okay, so that's that about that. Then we have variable cost. And now, okay, wait. Before leaving that, so another name for fixed cost is overhead cost. Okay, so whether you say overhead cost somewhere or you say fixed cost somewhere, they are talking about the same thing. I hope I'm right though. I hope I've not mixed these things up. Now, number two is the variable cost. Now, variable cost is the cost that changes with the level of output. All right, so if you don't have any output, you don't have any variable cost. All right. So, and another name for variable cost is prime cost. So, if you see prime cost or you see variable cost, okay, they are talking about the same thing. So, the features of a variable cost, it is zero when output is zero. It's the cost you incur when you started production. So that's just it. If production has not started, so it is going to be zero. If your production increases, then your variable cost increases, right? If your production falls, your variable cost falls. So that's just the way it goes. An example of that is the mic I'm using. Okay, so if I am recording classes, you bet that I would have to use markers. Okay, so now the rate at which this marker is going to finish depends on how often I record classes. So if I record a lot of classes, that means I would have to be buying a lot of markers. Okay, and if I record a less number of classes, that means I need to be buying, I'll be buying less amount of markers. And the same thing for this piece of paper that I'm holding here. So the more classes, the more I exhaust this stuff, and the more I have to get another one. So it's different from the cost of the board. All right. So no matter how many classes I record, the board is the board. The board is just here, right? So whatever amount I've spent on buying this board is a fixed cost. So it's just there. It doesn't change. If I choose to record 5 videos, 7 videos, 1,000 videos, and I still want to use this board. So the board is just there. So the amount I bought this board is an example of this fixed cost. All right. This this no, these stuffs are variable, right? They are variable inputs. So the variable input, like variable factors of production. So the amount that I used to buy them is a variable cost. All right. So that's that. Then we have the total cost. Total cost is just the sum of. So it's just the sum. This is just the sum of the fixed cost and your variable cost. FC plus BC equals to total cost. So now this is the variable cost, right? You can see that number first thing is it starts from zero. If you're not producing anything, you're not incurring the variable cost, then it begins to rise. So at first it rises gently, all right. Then later it changes its shape or its slope, and then it begins to rise in a steep way. So why this is like that is due to the law of variable proportions. So now you've probably been taught that the law of variable proportions and law of diminishing returns that they are the same thing. The thing is that they are not the same thing. All right. The law of variable proportions encompasses the law of diminishing returns. That is, it's a part of variable proportions that we call diminishing returns. All right. Let me try to explain what I mean. So here when you start production, right? So you have at the beginning you kind of have excess capacity, okay, and as the market demand for your product is increasing, you kind of produce more. Now, because you are starting from a position of excess capacity, so when there is an increase in the demand for your product that is making your company to increase production, the marginal product, right, rises very fast. You understand? Because you have a lot of factors of production that are unused, so you have excess capacity around, and bringing in let's say here there's a fixed factor, right? Because basically law of diminishing returns is saying that as more of a variable factor is added onto a fixed factor, output eventually diminishes. So that's the point, like that's the point of diminishing returns. All right, so but yeah, I was trying to use it to explain this stuff. So now that point where your marginal product is rising very fast as a result of excess capacity. So in that in that particular area, your variable cost, all right, is going to be small. Its variable cost will be increasing. Normally, cost goes up, right? No matter what you try to do, eventually cost goes up. But the thing is that variable cost, increases, gently. You understand? So it's more or less like how do I put it? um, it's more or less like what happens to your marginal cost. So everything is from the marginal cost area. Okay, so your marginal cost, at where you have excess capacity, all right, and as you keep on producing, the marginal cost is gonna be rising, but it's rising very small. It's little by little. So that makes your variable cost at the end of the day, to be rising, at a small rate. So, and that's why your curve is kind of gentle. But it gets to a point where your company is utilizing its excess capacity and there's no excess capacity again. So it takes a lot, you understand, to be able to produce a little more of the product that you've been producing. You understand? And remember that I said here there is at least a fixed factor of production. So, and in our case, it's capital. So at that point, it's going to cost a lot more than it used to cost in order for you to be able to increase the production. Okay, and at that point, your variable cost becomes the curve becomes steep. Right, that is, it rises, very fast. So that's why the slope is changed from being gentle, changes to being steep. All right. So why did I say law of diminishing returns is not the same as law of variable proportions technically? And I'm not going to go too deep into it because there's another video that explains the relationship between marginal product and what they call it now, and your total product. But at first, so on the marginal product score, um, so you have a Q. So there's a particular input here. So you have, let's say, K is constant. So we are talking about labor, and this is talking about the marginal product of labor. Okay, zero. So what you see is that your marginal product at first increases. Here you have excess capacity, and it becomes constant, right? Let's say you employ one person. No, you employ the fifth person. The person was able to add, let me say, 20 units to production. Then you employ the sixth person. The person was also able to add 20 units to production. So let's say this is 20. So the fifth person added 20, the sixth person added 20, so it's kind of constant. Then from there, if you add another employee, so you discover that your marginal product falls. So here we have increasing returns. You understand? So that is, as you are adding labor, the rate at which your marginal product is rising is faster than the rate at which you are adding, laborers. In this case, the variable input. So at some point it becomes, constant, and at some point it starts to, fall. So diminishing returns is actually this part. All right. So diminishing is falling, right? So because at first it's not diminishing. At first, MP is rising very fast. All right, then it becomes constant and it begins to fall. So everything, what happens here is what you call variable proportions. All right, that is as you're increasing your output, so there are kind of three different stages. Okay, first, when you're taking the proportion of your output to your input, you see that here it is high, output to your input is high, then here it's kind of constant, then here it's kind of it's already falling. So you have variable proportions like in three stages. So all of those things are called variable proportions, but this is the part that is the diminishing returns. But then I'm not trying to like destroy everything that you have put in your head, right? So just keep on using it, but just technically understand the difference. So when they say the law of diminishing returns is also known as the law of variable proportions, it's okay, it's true, it's okay. But if you're given a chance to kind of explain yourself, you might be able to like chip in that okay that technically they are not the same. All right, so that's about that. I hope it's not confusing you. You can read more on it, so I hope you get materials that makes you to read more on this stuff. So I'm not here to confuse you. All right. So and after that we have the total cost. Now because total cost is a combination of two things, so you have fixed cost and variable cost. Fixed cost never starts from zero. All right, like the cost of my phone that I was saying, so you have 100,000. This is zero. This is Q. Now, because the fixed cost was not, because there's a fixed cost component of your total cost, so you have your total cost starting from a point like this. Total cost does not start from zero. All right, from a point like that. Then that's the attribute of the fixed cost that it has. Then the attribute of the variable cost that is going to have is the shape. It will inherit the shape of the variable cost curve. So it's going to be like this as well, something like that. Just this shape. Sorry for my graph. I can start from here. So let's say my 100k is here. Yeah. So something like that. Now that it's infinite, so whatever happens, your cost keeps increasing. All right. So your total cost curve does not start from zero because of the presence of a fixed cost, and then it inherits the shape of the variable cost curve. So as the variable cost curve is Gen 2, you have your total cost being Gen 2. When it becomes steep, you have your total cost being steep. All right. Now there is something I also want to note here, that this kind of cost that we are treating is referring to the short run. Okay, the short run period. Because and what is short run? Short run is just a period where at least a factor of production is fixed. Okay, so at least something. If you want to increase your level of output, there is something that is like a constraint. That wouldn't make you to be able to like increase your level of output. Let me not say increase, but vary. Kind of let me say vary. Now, but the examples that we are used to are the ones talking about increases. So I'm recording this video in an office. So let me assume that this is a classroom and then we have 20 students. So or let me say 30 students, optimum number, 30 students. So it's enough. But let me say the students, number of students that want to be taught increases to 50. That means this place can no longer, occupy them. But if it's difficult for me to be able to like get a bigger class, all right. So that's short run. I'm limited by office space or by the classroom space. All right. So that's an example. Okay. And let's say I was using a big class. You understand? And I had, let me say, 100 students, or let me say a hall, 100 students. But then, or let me say, okay, let me put it this way. You have a valedictory service, or let me say convocation ceremony in your school, and then your school is used to making use of a big hall. Okay, that will contain, let me say, 500 students. But in a particular year, some things happened, and the number of students that are convocating fell to, let me say, 100. It used to be 500, now 100. So now your school is supposed to get a smaller hall, right? But if your school does not have a smaller hall, so it still has to make use of that big hall. And that's like an overcapacity. So you have too much space for 100 people. Normally, you wouldn't want to do that. Do you understand? So in that case, the school is also limited. So it cannot really change from the big hall that suits a large number of students to an optimum hall size, the one that just fits 100 students. Okay, over time, the school might then have a smaller hall, a small hall, here somewhere, and then a large hall, so something like a small theater and a large theater. Okay, but if the school started with just a large theater and the students are now small, so it can't really, go and start using a small hall. So that's another example, like I said, of you being in a short run. And short run varies, right? It's not a number of years. So it's not talking about, let me say, 5 years. It's not talking about 10 years. It's not talking about 1 year. Short run in a place might be long run in another industry. Okay, so if it takes me a week to get a bigger classroom for my students because they have increased in number, that means 1 week was my short run. All right. So if it takes the school, right, if it takes this for like 4 years to be able to plan and do everything in order to like get a small theater or a small hall, that means 4 years is their short run. Okay. So that's just the way it goes. All right. Now there's something I also want to talk about, which is the relationship between your total cost. This is 0, this is Q, and this is costs. Okay, in naira. So this variable cost like this. So your fixed cost is starting from 100 here. So your total cost is now I used to have issues with this stuff, so because that's to follow this slope. Oh, I tried. So this variable cost. This is your total cost. All right. So the thing is that when you have something like this, the difference, let's say as quantity 5, um, yeah, the difference between your variable cost and your total cost is going to be equal to the same thing. So here, let's say the cost is already 110. Here, this might be 10. Okay, this should be 10. So 110 minus 10 will give you your 100, so which is the fixed cost. So it doesn't matter, even if you are here, I'll just let me say up to 12. So here we have no, let me just, so here I have this guy. So here you have your 10k, 80k. So your variable cost at output 12 is 80,000. So your total cost here will be 180,000. So 180 minus 80, so that would also give you 100,000. So that's just the point. The difference between your total cost and your variable cost curve is going to give you your fixed cost. I already said FC plus VC is TC. So from there, FC is TC minus VC. Same thing for VC, which is TC minus FC. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm moving on fast. Then we have implicit and explicit costs, which is number 5. I'm not talking about that in this video. I already discussed them very well in another video when I was talking about economic profit and accounting profit, the difference between the two. So something important that I want to talk about in this video is sunk cost. Now the thing is that you read, or you've been reading, and then students, from my observation, students cannot really differentiate between the fixed cost and the sunk cost. Okay, fine. The definition you're grading is sunk cost is an irrecoverable cost. Okay, money that has drowned, right? Money that has gone, and you are then giving some examples. You are giving some items. Which one is sunk? Which one is fixed? And what you're picking for fixed cost is what you're picking for sunk cost. Like you don't really know what you're doing, and it's not your fault, right? So, in this video, I would like to talk about sunk cost. So really, sunk cost is irrecoverable cost, right? But for me personally, I decided unofficially to like give you this definition: like sunk cost is wasted funds, money gone down the drain, right? Money gone down the drain. So that's sunk cost. Now, how do you know it's sunk cost? You have a sunk cost when um, the intention of spending money, okay, the intention of incurring that cost is not achieved. All right, so that's when you have a sunk cost. The intention of having that cost is not achieved. And some cost might be fixed cost, some cost might be greater than fixed cost. Okay, so that's technically saying that a fixed cost might be a sunk cost. All right, but a sunk cost is not necessarily not a sunk cost is not necessarily equal to fixed cost. Okay, now let me give examples. I think I have 3 examples here, and I hope I'm not jumping anything. Okay, everything went down the drain, but okay. So let's say you want to start a program. Okay, for example, before this particular day, I started investing in a particular project, particular program. So I wanted to. The intention was that we're gonna have a course, like a program for final year students writing projects. Okay, writing their final year thesis or whatever in economics department. So I invested in this stuff, time, energy, um, money, kind of. So at the end of the day, we're able to like come up with the number of videos that we need in order to um, start up the program. Then there was advertisements, and stuff like that. But then, at the end of the day, it failed. It didn't fly, right? So only three people indicated interest, and it was this month to start with three people. And in fact, there was only one person who had paid, so I had to like ask him that, please, I would like to make a refund of your money because the program could not fly. All right, so in um, everything that we did for the program, okay, so we have, come and see, we have a fixed cost, then you have a variable cost. So under fixed cost, of course, I had office space. It was office space. I'm not spending on office space, so assumption. Okay, office space. Then this board, because I used you have the whiteboard, right? So what else? I wrote some things. The phone I'm using to record this. The phone, the tripod stand, the tripod stand. Then we spent on publicity, so kind of advertisement publicity. So all of these things are on our face because they do not change. Whether the program was able to fly or not, whether the number of internet students we were supposed to reach, we reached them or we didn't reach them, the money spent on all of these things do not, change. They are the same thing. Now, other variable costs, of course, labor, which is like wage, labor's wage, right? Then I have markers, I have markers, I have notes, okay, like this, and maybe then data, very important, data, because I had to like do so uploads. All right, so I had to upload the videos to YouTube and stuff like that. So the thing is, if you look at it, because the program could not fly, the money I spent on these things, they are wasted funds. They've gone down the drain because they didn't meet the initial intention of why the program was, set up. All right. So, but if you look at it, there's fixed cost, there's variable cost. So in this particular case, the sunk cost, that is the irrecoverable funds, the wasted funds, is greater than the fixed cost. All right, and that is because they could not achieve their aim. So fixed cost does not change with the level of output, but if it was able to achieve its aim, all right, if the aim of the producer of incurring that fixed cost, if the aim was not achieved, and that fixed cost becomes a part of the sunk cost, right? So, and that's not about that. So I hope you've been able to like understand the difference between a sunk cost and a fixed cost, all right? So, um, sunk cost could be a variable cost, all right, be a variable cost, and but in this particular case, they happen to be the both of them. So my sunk cost is greater than my fixed cost, and that is because what the intention was in starting up that project writing course, research writing course, could not be achieved. All right, so that's why it's called irrecoverable. You wasted it, kind of. Not that you intended to waste it, or you wasted it. No, it's gone down the drain. All right, so do I have any other thing to say about a sunk cost? A sunk cost might be a fixed cost, but a fixed cost is not necessarily a sunk cost. So I give examples. All right, yeah, that's that. Now there is another example of a sunk cost. Let me say a pharmaceutical company. Um, we've gone beyond the COVID times, at least in Nigeria here, at this particular time in 2022. Okay, so let's say a pharmaceutical company during the period of COVID thought that it could get the drug that was going to cancel COVID, right? That was going to cure COVID. That's the technical term. That's going to cure COVID. Okay, COVID-19. And then a lot of money went into research and development. All of these pharmaceutical companies, a lot of millions of dollars, billions of dollars going into research to bring out something great. All right, so because the company felt that it could do it, right, that it was getting some stuff done. But at the end of the day, after spending like maybe $10 billion on research, you have to hire specialists, laboratory equipment, laboratory itself, the equipment, all of those stuff that they used to experiment and stuff like that. So you spent, let me say, $10 billion on it, and at the end you could not come up with a drug. Okay, so what does that mean? The entire $10 billion is a sunk cost. But if you divide the sunk cost, some of it was a fixed cost. Let me say the cost of the laboratory and the medical equipment that were used in doing the experiment. Then you also have the variable cost aspects, the what you had to pay to the specialist. Um, working per hours. Okay, the specialists are working per hour, so you have to be paying them per hour and stuff like that. So um, all of those things, some cost, but when you divide them, there is fixed aspect of it and there is variable aspect of it. So that's another example. Then the third example is advertisement. All right, so the company says we develop some products, right? So we want to advertise them to the public, and the intention of advertisement is to increase sales, basically, right? So you develop a product, you pay advertisements or advertising agencies. Okay, you pay an advertising agency to be able to like create maybe an ad, maybe something just put this thing out there. We want increment in sales. All right, so then after putting in the money there, massive advertisement stuff and like that. So you were hoping for, let's say, a 200% increase in sales, but at the end of the day, you were getting maybe 5% increase in sales because you have been wrong in your market research. You have been wrong, so you thought it was going to fly, you didn't. So the thing is that the amount spent on advertisements is a fixed cost because it does not even depend on your level of outputs eventually. So it does not depend whether you choose to increase your output by 200, by 500, units and stuff like that. What you spend on advertisement is the same. You already spent it. All right. So it's a fixed cost, right? But in that particular case, too, because you could not um, get you could not meet the aim, the company could not meet the aim of the advertisements. Not that there was no increase in sales, right? But it was just dismal compared to what you were looking for. So it's like, oh God, we wasted our money. All right, so we lost it. We lost the money. Okay, so that's a sunk cost in that area where your sunk cost is equal to your fixed cost, right? So advertisement cost is fixed cost is the same thing as your sunk cost. So like that way, if you are able to if you're able to distinguish sunk cost from fixed cost that way, I think it shouldn't be a problem going forward, right? If there's an update, let me say I read up something and I was like, damn, I'd be wrong when I was recording this particular video. So that means I would have, understand, to like make a new video, right? And correct that. But for now, from what I've read and understood, so that's what I think the difference between a fixed cost and a sunk cost is. Right. So is there something else here? There's something else here. I don't think so. I don't think so. Now I have a food for thought for you. Food for thought. Now because this class is already um, pending, right? Okay, before that, we have average fixed cost, average variable costs. Um, sorry, the averages. All right. So your average fixed cost is the fixed cost per unit of output, which is FC over Q. Your average variable cost per unit of output, VC over Q. Then you have your average total cost, which is total cost over Q, right? So fixed cost per unit of output produced, that's the AFC. ABC is your variable cost. Just what you've calculated here, but divide them by the number of quantity produced. So you get the averages. Then you have the marginal cost. So your marginal cost is a change in total cost from a unit change in quantity produced, from a unit change, right? So output is increasing from 1 to 2. So 2 minus 1 is a unit change. So what happens to your total cost there? So when you do the TC, the Q, you're going to get your MC. Now they also have a graphical um, relationship, Q. So the thing is your average fixed cost falls continuously but it's never equals to 0, AFC, and the shape is called rectangular hyperbola. So the shape of your AFC is a rectangular hyperbola. That's the shape. It's it decreases continuously, right, but never equals to zero. So why? In this case, fixed cost was 100,000. So if output is zero, it's kind of infinity. You don't know where it's starting from, right? So if output goes to 10, this is 10,000. Now if output goes to 100k, okay, if output goes to, let me say, 1,000, this gives us 0.1 or 0.1k. So that's what you'll be having. So if output goes to 10,000, for example, 100k divided by 10, 10k now, or 10, yeah, no, wait, it is output 1,000. If output becomes 10,000, all right, so I think we'll be having 0.01, 0.01k. So if you have 0.00, 0.00, no, like that, but it's never equals to just zero. It's not going to be zero. That's why it starts from a high point, right, and then continues to fall as you are increasing your quantity produced. Now, how about your average total cost? Okay, so, or let me say this average fixed cost, and let me say your average variable cost. So it depends. Your average variable cost is U-shaped. It's U-shaped, ABC. It's U-shaped. So which is, you can have that from this shape of the variable cost curve. So at first, your because of excess capacity, the average variable cost is falling. But you guess no, yeah, as you're adding a what do you call it? A variable factor, so a fixed factor. So your average variable cost is falling, but it gets to the point where it falls to its lowest point. So then it begins to rise. That's when you are beginning to use up most of the capacity of the company. You understand? So there, the average real cost curve starts to increase, and then you now have the average total cost curve. Did I even draw this well? So you have the average total cost curve, ATC. Now the thing is that I nope. Yeah, something like that. So the thing is that at every output, the difference between your ATC and your ABC, now it's the same reason because of the law of variable proportions. That's why they are both U-shaped, right? And this is short run, right? I told you that's you have fixed cost in your short run, so there's going to be a difference between your total cost and your variable cost. But in the long run, there is no fixed cost, so your ATC will be your ABC. Okay, so the difference between this and this, ATC minus ABC, will give you your AFC, right? As let's say Q5, for example. Here too, the difference between this and this, we give you AFC. Let's say this was Q2, for example. So now if you look at the shape of the curves, they are both U-shaped, right? They are both U-shaped, and the gap between the two falls. Why? Because the gap between the two represents average fixed cost. You understand? And average fixed cost reduces as you're increasing your output produced. It reduces. I've already explained that. So the gap has to keep reducing like that. You understand? But they will never be equal in the short run. And the reason being that your AFC never becomes zero. I've shown an example here. AFC never becomes zero. And because of that, your ABC will never, touch your ATC, but they keep getting closer and closer. All right. So that's that about that. So I was going to talk about something. I'm done with the average. Okay, wait. There's something called the marginal cost. So the marginal cost curve, um, which is showing the change in total cost as a result of increasing your output level by 1 unit, just 1 unit. So the marginal cost curve at the beginning, it falls, then it begins to rise, right? So which is also as a result of diminishing law of variable proportions, excess capacity. So if you want to increase output produce, your cost might even fall. That's what this one is saying. But it's not always like that, right? So it depends on the cost function of a particular company. It might be a straight line. It might be a straight line, like it's linear kind of. So, but theoretically, this is how the marginal cost is. It falls at the beginning, then it begins, to rise. So what you have to notice is that the marginal cost curve, it cuts the the ATC at ATC's minimum point. It's at ATC's lowest point. The same thing for the ABC. It cuts the ABC as ABC's lowest, point, right? So That's something that you need to note about the marginal cost curve. All right. So, what shape would you call this? Would you call this U shape? I don't even know what shape to call it, right? But this is really U. This is rectangular, parabola. But for this, maybe you find out about that. I don't know what the name of the shape is called. All right. So, like I said, there's gonna be a food for thought, not like a technical assignment. So here, the thing is that I spoke about a program that we developed for final year students, the project writing stuff that failed, kind of. Okay, not kind of. So now the thing is, we decided to re-strategize. Okay, so the original intention was that okay, we've produced this thing, this program, like we are developing this program for final year students in their finals, writing their project like in the semester, like in the session that they are meant to write their project. So now, but we are like, okay, since that didn't work, so let's go back to the drawing board and okay, why not develop this program? Why not incorporate it into our penultimate students second semester classes? So our penultimate second, that's in this case 300 level students. All right, because it used to be it's 100 level to 400 level at least as of now 2022. Okay, from most universities. So why not just do that? And we have students in 100 level, 200 level, and 300 level currently. Okay, or enrolled on MOD School of Economics, okay, our online school and stuff like that. So we then decided that okay, let's do that, right? So the thing is that so in 300 level second semester, the course would be like research methodology. Okay, so we're going to teach our students how to write their final year project work. And I was even thinking that I think this is even the best, right? Because here you have the time to train yourself on how to write a project before you finally get to your final year where you then have to write something, where you then have to write a project that you're going to submit to your department. Okay, so now if that is the case, like if we've re-strategized and then we are now producing this stuff for 300 level students, right, that are going into 400 and we are teaching them in their second semester. The thing is that right now at MOD School of Economics, we take two economics courses per semester, just two economic courses per semester. So now in 300 level second semester, we are now going to be taking three. All right, that is in addition to this. So there macroeconomics course, there are econometrics course, and then research writing course. Right. So we are going to be taking three. So now, right now we are in first semester. So when the student move into their second semester, we then add this um, cost to whatever it is they are doing. So in that case, is this the cost that we spent on coming up with a program? Is it still a sunk cost? Right. So thank you very much for watching this video. See you next time.